Hello.
Hello. My name is Gioma Falu.
My name is Desmond Cole.
My name is Grace Biskey.
And this
Is my
Story.
I grew up in a society
I grew up in a home.
I grew up in a world.
where I knew white culture better than most white people knew white culture. I knew white culture, white history, white politics. And you ask me why do I know white culture so well? Because I'm a black woman.
Where my parents were constantly lecturing me about respecting authority, working hard and persevering our family's good name. They made it clear that although I was the same as my white peers, I would have to try harder and achieve more just to keep up. I tried to ignore what they said about my race, but it just seemed too cruel to be true.
Where my older white brother called me racist names more times than I can count. My brother had grown up in an all-white neighborhood until the white flight swept through in a little under 2 years. He was thrust into being the only white kid among black kids who stole his bike and beat him up. Outnumbered in the streets, he took it out on me at home.
I had to learn.
I had to learn.
I had to learn.
I had to learn to talk to my white teachers in a way that didn't seem too boisterous. And I learned why enthusiasm would be destructive from me, yet welcomed by white boys. I had to learn what level of eye contact with cops seemed respectful, what seemed evasive, and what seemed challenging.
I had to learn to adapt to society. I had my first face-to-face interaction with the Kingston Police a few months into my second year of university, when I was walking with my friend Sarah, a white woman, back to her house after a party. An officer stopped us, then turned his back to me and addressed Sarah directly. "Miss, do you need assistance?" he asked her. Sarah was stunned into silence. "No," she said twice, once to the officer and once to reassure herself that everything was all right. The fact that my mere presence could cause an armed stranger to feel threatened on Sarah's behalf shocked me at first, but shock quickly gave way to bitterness and then to anger.
I learned from blacks at a very early age that whites were manipulative, selfish, always out for their damn selves, and not to be trusted. I learned from whites at a very early age that blacks were violent, stupid, unacceptable human beings who were less important than themselves, and most of all, not safe.
I may be coming across as arrogant,
Paranoid
Over the top,
but this is the
reality.
of our world.
people of color have lost so much when we've gotten it wrong. We have been fired for wearing our hair in ways you don't like, for not hiding our bodies that you decide to hypersexualize, for having too many opinions, for answering too honestly, for using our own accents and dialogue instead of yours, for believing you when you said you didn't tolerate racism in the workplace, for teaching history you refuse to acknowledge, for celebrating our beauty that you don't want to see.
I grew up in Detroit among urban working class blacks while my white mother sent me to a suburban lily white Christian school and a large white Baptist church, which denied me baptism in 1987 for being half black.
One night during the gang wars of Toronto in 2005, I stepped off a bus on Dufferin Street at the same time as a young woman in her 20s. She took a couple of steps, looked over her shoulder, saw me, and tore into a full sprint. I resisted the urge to call out in my own defense.
I just couldn't understand how people couldn't see that we are.
No more or less human.
Than anyone else in this world.
Eventually, the racism swirling around me became a part of what I believed to be true about the world. A few whites were great, most were tolerable, and the rest were deplorable. These truths were seared into my brain like a brand on a baby cow. I had been branded with racism.
And as much as I'd like you to see me, as much as I'd like systemic racism to simply be a problem of different groups not seeing each other, I need you to see yourself. Really see yourself first.
White people often go out of their way to say they don't see color when they look at me. In those moments, I'm tempted to recommend an optometrist. I know they're just expressing a desire for equality, but I don't want to be erased in the process.
For all these reasons and more, I have been unable to disengage with the issues that plague black and white Christians in our country. I've tried to disengage. Lord knows I've wanted to disengage, but I simply can't untangle myself from the racist web into which I was spun. And it's for these same reasons I feel terribly sad when I watch whites disengage.
To disengage is to not know African American history.
To disengage is to never admit, let alone assess, your power and privilege as a white North American.
To disengage is to raise your kids colorblind.
To disengage is to not read widely about racial and ethnic issues in our country.
To disengage is to assume living in a predominantly white community is safer and mandatory for your family without examining how you came to that conclusion.
To disengage is to attend a large white church and never ask how the church got there or why it's staying that way.
To disengage is to deny our humanity. Hello, my name is Emily, and I'm white.
Hello, my name is Hannah, and I'm white.
Hello, my name is Wes, and I'm white.
And being white comes with certain privileges. The privilege of having a positive relationship with the police.
The privilege of learning about my race in school.
Privilege of finding children's books that overwhelmingly represent my race.
I have the privilege of soaking in media that is blatantly biased towards my race. These privileges are a reality. As a white individual, I must ask the question in response to this. Should these
Privileges
even exist?
How can the amount of pigment in one's skin create so many presumptions and disadvantages in life?
It is time to be educated.
It is time to remove the blinders.
It is time to love people for how they have been made, beautifully.
So let us not disengage
But let us engage.
In putting aside our presuppositions of people,
and seeing them for who they really are.
human,
But more than that,
Children of God.